When you forgive someone, you have to come to an understanding that it is not for them, it is for you. You choosing to forgive a person doesn't mean that you're not validating your own feelings or your own experiences. And it doesn't mean that you're just letting the situation go like it doesn't matter. But it's really coming down to just accepting what happened and accepting things for what it is and accepting that you can't change what happened, right? It's also understanding that you don't want to harbor those negative feelings. You don't want to be resentful towards a person because it's not worth it. Like it's not worth you feeling that like just darkness inside or you feeling that anger, that pain inside because the person is not feeling that pain. Like they will have their own thing to feel if they even feel it, because a lot of times like people are, their lives are still going, but you holding on to that pain, that resentment, that bitterness is not going to affect them the way that you think it is. It's affecting you because you're now holding on to this negative energy when you should be releasing it, because ultimately like you should care about how you feel inside, right? Because that's what's most important. You are the one that have to live within your body. You are the one that is constantly experiencing your reality. So for you to not be in a space of just peace, not be in a space of just contentment, but you're constantly feeling just angry, that's only hurting you, and it's not fair to yourself. And when it comes to forgiving, it's also understanding that you're not always going to get an apology. You're not always going to get that closure that you wanted, because sometimes that's just not the reality of things, and sometimes you're not able to get that closure. Sometimes it's not worth getting that closure, and sometimes people aren't going to give you the closure that you are wanting, which can sometimes probably lead to more frustration or like just feelings that you may not want to feel, which can cause you to feel that resentment towards them. In some situations you may be better off not getting that closure, depending on the type of person that you're dealing with. Some people are willing to acknowledge where they went wrong, and some people aren't willing to acknowledge where they went wrong. Some people won't admit to their wrongdoing. Some people won't give you that apology that you are wanting, and you can never force that out of a person. You get what I'm saying? You should never go out of your way and hyper focus on a person giving you that feeling of apology if sometimes they may not genuinely mean that apology. So you don't want to go through all of that just to hear the words of I'm sorry and they don't genuinely mean it. So sometimes you are just better off not getting that closure. And I feel like when in that situation, and even if it's not that type of situation, I feel like when it comes to forgiveness, there's a level of accepting what happened, but also being able to process what happened, being able to separate yourself from the situation and look at things from a perspective where you kind of empathize with the situation. You understand why things may have happened, how it happened. And that doesn't mean that you are making any excuses for why the situation happened. It's not you validating or enabling why that person showed up in the way that they did, like you're making an excuse for them. It's not even about that. It's kind of just, I feel like, taking yourself out of yourself. So you're separating yourself from the emotions that you feel from the situation and being able to see it from a higher perspective of this person may have shown up this way for this reason. Does it make it okay? No, but that's what happened and that's just the reality of it. And how can I now move forward from it? So it's kind of like you're looking at things from a higher perspective, from an unbiased way where yes, what may have happened you're not okay with, but when you really like, I feel like, dig deep into situations as to why people show up in the way that they do, why they do the things that they do, based off of whether it's their traumas, their experiences, their mindsets, it puts things into perspective and it helps you kind of, I don't want to say like empathize, but kind of, but not in a way where you feel sorry for them or anything like that. Because if you are, let's say, a victim in a situation, whether you choose to put your mind in that type of perspective, how you view the situation will ultimately, I feel like, determine like how you go about it. So yes, what may have happened is wrong, but it also comes down to, you know what, they did what they did. You can't change the past. Again, how do I move forward from this? Because you understand that you don't want to keep harboring on that. You don't want to hold on to those negative feelings, because like I said, at the end of the day, it only hurts you in the long run. And I also feel like, let's say when you do forgive a person, that doesn't mean you're going to forget, right? You can forgive and still move on. And just because you forgive a person doesn't mean that you have to allow them back into your life in the same way that they was once in your life, because that can be you putting yourself in a situation where you may experience the same thing again, or you may find yourself, I guess, like maybe being triggered by what they did. So it's really important to understand that when you are choosing to forgive someone, you're forgiving them out of understanding, but you're also forgiving them because you know that you don't deserve and you don't want to feel those negative feelings inside of you. And of course, I'm not saying like run from your feelings, right? Like feel what you feel and acknowledge how you feel, validate how you feel, but also wanting better for yourself and wanting to feel lighter within your energy and not feeling heavy and weighed down by the burden of what someone else did to you or even how they made you feel. Like you don't want to give a person that level of power over you to where you're now not in control of how you feel, you know, like you want to be able to adjust yourself based off of your mindset and based off of how you feel inside. But you should never give someone that much power over you to where like what they did, you're now holding on to it and you're allowing it to kill your mood and just ruin everything. That's not fair to you. And also, it's so important to understand that just as much as, say, you forgiving someone and you choose to not allow them back into your life, is the same thing with if you do choose to forgive someone and you allow them back into your life, you need to make sure that you truly are forgiving them. Because I feel like it's unfair to say you forgive someone, and of course, like you have to be the one to determine what's worth forgiving and what's not worth forgiving, right? But if you say you forgive someone and yet you're still secretly holding on to that resentment, you're now kind of being the toxic one, if I'm being completely honest. Because if you say you forgive someone, you should be willing to show up on a clean slate, allowing them the opportunity to adjust themselves with the thing that you had to forgive them for. You get what I'm saying? Like, you don't say you forgive someone and you keep bringing it up, because at that point you didn't truly forgive them. And I feel like at that point you are going to be creating a toxic situation, because the reality is you are still harboring onto those ill feelings. And let's say if the person is showing up in a better way, you can't then be projecting their past mistake onto them and trying to make them feel shame and guilt when they are trying to do better. You get what I'm saying? And at that point, you constantly throwing their past mistake in their face is not fair to them. It's different if you genuinely forgive someone and you're allowing them the space to show up differently and they still keep doing the things that you had to forgive them for. That's different, because at that point, like, the person is showing you who they are. So it's like, why do you keep giving them the opportunity to have to keep forgiving them? You know what I'm saying? Because at that point, if a person apologized for showing up a certain way, but yet they keep doing it, they didn't genuinely mean that apology. So at that point, that is a person that you would have to forgive but eliminate access to you. But if it's a person who has apologized for their past mistakes and they are trying to show up differently, you have to have that level of grace extended towards them because you have decided to forgive them. Of course, like I said, you have to be the one to determine what's something that you can forgive and what you can't forgive. Like, say for example, if someone did something minor that like you didn't like, but it's kind of just like, you know what, I could forgive this if you change your behavior and I won't hold any ill feelings towards you, that's something where it's like, okay. But if a person does something so disrespectful that you can't even look at them the same, like, you know, every time you're going to be reminded of that just by interacting with them, I feel like at that point, like, forgive, but just go about your separate way, you know? Because at that point, I know that that level of forgiveness that you would want extended, where I would have to give you a clean slate, I'm not able to do that because you went so far off onto the deep end that I don't even look at you the same. So like I said, it really comes down to you being the one to be able to scale what's forgivable to where a person can still stay in your life, and what's not forgivable to where you have to literally revoke access from them in your life. So when it comes to forgiveness, understand that it is not for them, it is for you. You are forgiving because you have accepted what has happened. You are forgiving because you have grace and you have empathy and you understand why something may have happened. So when it comes to forgiveness, it's really just you understanding how you can't change what happened, but also being willing to move forward from it without harboring onto ill feelings, because you know you don't deserve to feel those ill feelings inside. Yes, it's about the other person, but at the end of the day, it's really also about you and what you want to hold on to and what you don't want to hold on to. And like I said, if a person does something that's so far left that you know you can't forgive, where you can't look at them the same, that is your confirmation of, okay, I forgive you, but I will never forget that. And with things like that, you can't really compromise with it how you may want to compromise in situations where it's just like, okay, like I'll still keep this in the back of my head, but it's still something that I can work with. And honestly, yes, I do believe that some things are not forgivable, but I also do feel like when it comes to forgiving with certain things, we're all humans. We're not perfect. We're going to fall short at times. And it really comes down to understanding a person's intentions, whether, you know, like they intended on doing it, whether they didn't intend on doing it. Like there's so many different nuances, I feel like, to situations where you have to really sit down with yourself to understand, like, is this something that I can work with? Is this something that I can't work with? Like, is this person showing me repeated patterns? Was it just like a minimal mistake? And when it comes to forgiveness, it's going to look different for everyone because people have different tolerance levels, people have different experiences, people have different just mindsets and perspectives. It's really just like a situational thing. So I think it's really important to just be emotionally available with yourself enough to know, like, how has something affected you, and be able to decipher whether it's something that you can work with if there's change behavior, or if it's something that you can't look past and you're just gonna have to go your own separate ways. So y'all, listen, we're not perfect, nobody's perfect, but like, yeah. So I'm gonna just end this here.